There is a moment every man faces. A moment of silence so heavy, it feels like it could collapse your entire sense of confidence. The moment she stops replying. The moment her energy changes. The moment her warmth disappears without warning. You stare at your phone, wondering what happened. You replay conversations, searching for clues. You check her social media. You wait, hoping to see her name light up your screen. But nothing comes. And the silence begins to eat away at you. Not because she's gone, but because she's choosing not to respond. Every man has lived this moment, but only a few ever escape it without destroying their value. Because when a woman ignores you, most men react emotionally. They panic, they chase, they try harder, they say more than they should. They do things they would never do if they were calm. And without realizing it, they make the exact mistakes that push her further away. Not because she hates them, not because she lost all interest, but because their reactions confirm a truth she was quietly testing for. His emotional stability is weaker than his attraction for her. And the brutal part? She doesn't need to block you, yell at you, or confront you. Her silence is the test. Her distance is the mirror. Her lack of reply is the truth you never wanted to see. Women don't always pull away because they want someone else. Sometimes they pull away to understand who you are when she steps back. Does your world crumble? Do you chase harder? Do you beg for clarity? Or do you remain calm, disciplined, and composed, the man she could actually respect? The real danger is not her ignoring you. The real danger is what you do next. Because in these moments of silence, most men sabotage themselves completely. They turn curiosity into pressure. They turn distance into desperation. They turn a small pause into a complete loss of dignity. And once a woman sees you make these 5 mistakes, her perception of you changes, not temporarily, but permanently. The man she once saw as confident suddenly looks insecure. The man she once respected suddenly looks dependent. The man she once admired suddenly looks overwhelmed by her absence. The man she once considered becomes the man she avoids. But here's the part no one tells you. When she ignores you, she's not just watching what you say, she's watching who you become. A woman can ignore a message, but she cannot ignore a man who remains powerful in silence. She cannot ignore a man whose self-worth doesn't bend to attention. She cannot ignore a man who understands psychology more deeply than she expected. And she cannot ignore a man who responds to distance with composure, strength, and quiet confidence, not emotional chaos. In this video, you will learn the 5 worst mistakes men make when she ignores them. Mistakes that destroy attraction instantly. And more importantly, you will learn how to avoid them so her silence becomes an opportunity, not a death sentence. Because when you understand what not to do, you finally unlock what truly makes her pay attention again. Before we start, a quick reminder. The real transformation doesn't happen on YouTube, it happens inside the community. If these videos have opened your eyes, what's inside will rebuild your mindset completely. It's not just a course, it's a brotherhood. A private space where men master attraction, emotional control, and the psychology of power. You don't join for a month. You join for life. Every future course, book, and lesson is yours forever. No subscriptions, no limits, just one decision that changes your direction. If you're serious about growth, discipline, and purpose, click the link below. Join the community. Enroll once, grow forever. Let's dive in. Mistake number 1. Chasing her attention instead of guarding your value. The first and most damaging mistake men make when a woman ignores them is chasing her attention. This mistake is so common that most men don't even realize they're doing it until it's too late. The moment her replies slow down or stop entirely, something primal kicks in, a fear of losing her. That fear begins to drown logic, and the man starts reaching out more, typing longer messages, double texting, over-explaining, trying to joke his way back in, or sending emotional paragraphs, hoping she'll understand his intentions. But what he doesn't see is that every message he sends in this state is sending the same unspoken signal. My value depends on your attention. Women don't pull away only to see more words. They pull away to see your reaction. And nothing destroys attraction faster than a man who treats her silence as an emergency. When she ignores you and you panic, she sees a man who cannot regulate his emotions. When she creates distance and you chase, she sees a man who has no self-control. When she stops replying and you push harder, she sees a man whose self-worth comes from her validation, not his identity. And this shift is critical because once a woman sees you as someone who needs her more than she needs you, the polarity collapses. Chasing her attention takes many forms. It could be checking her social media constantly. It could be sending just checking in messages. It could be asking if she's upset, even when she hasn't communicated anything. It could be trying to fix something she never asked you to fix. It could be calling her unexpectedly because the silence feels unbearable. All of these actions feel justified in the moment, but they broadcast insecurity. And insecurity is the quickest way to turn ignore into avoid. The deeper psychology behind this mistake is simple but brutal. When you chase, you shift the power dynamic. You place her on a pedestal and place yourself beneath her emotionally. She becomes the prize you are fighting for, instead of the woman who should be discovering your value. You transform from the calm, grounded man she was drawn to into a reactive man who fears losing her more than he values himself. And no matter how interested she once was, this behavior forces her to see you through a different lens. But here's the truth that most men never understand. A woman ignoring you is not the problem. Your response is. She is not testing your words. She is testing your stability. She wants to know whether your confidence is real or performative, whether your calmness is consistent or conditional, whether your identity stands on its own or collapses the moment she pulls back. Stoic men do not chase when someone withdraws. They observe. They reset their energy. They protect their dignity. They communicate one thing through their silence. Your absence does not dictate my worth. The moment you stop chasing, something powerful happens. You reclaim your frame. You reclaim your emotional balance. You reclaim the energy that she was once drawn to. And women feel this shift instantly, even without a single message being sent. When you stop chasing her attention, the polarity returns. Not because you manipulated her, but because you remembered your value. Mistake number 2. Over-explaining yourself and trying to fix what isn't broken. The second worst mistake men make when a woman ignores them is falling into the trap of over-explaining themselves. The moment her replies slow down, many men begin searching for reasons, imaginary reasons. They assume they did something wrong. They assume she is upset. They assume there is a problem that must be fixed immediately. So, without realizing it, they start typing long messages, clarifying things that don't need clarification, apologizing for what wasn't wrong, and trying to soothe a discomfort that only exists in their own mind. This reaction is fatal because it sends one message to her subconscious. I am afraid of losing you. And the moment a woman senses fear-driven behavior, attraction begins to crumble. Not because she wants control, but because she wants a man who remains grounded, even when he doesn't have full clarity. A man who does not feel the need to justify his existence. A man who chooses communication, not desperation. Over-explaining destroys that image. It shifts the dynamic from strength to insecurity in a matter of seconds. When a man sends paragraphs trying to fix something he assumes is wrong, he reveals two dangerous things about himself. He does not trust his value, and he does not trust the dynamic. Instead of allowing the relationship to breathe, he suffocates it with explanations no one asked for. He tries to solve a problem that might not even exist. He gives her emotional information that she did not request, and in doing so, he shows her that her silence has the power to destabilize him. Women are incredibly intuitive. When they ignore you, whether consciously or subconsciously, they are observing your reaction. If you react by over-explaining yourself, she sees a man whose emotions are easily influenced. She sees a man who needs reassurance more than he offers it. She sees a man who loses composure the moment something feels uncertain. And that behavior, no matter how kind or well-intended, instantly lowers your perceived strength. But here is the deeper psychological truth. A woman does not want a man who fears her silence. She wants a man who respects himself enough to remain composed inside it. She wants a man who understands that clarity comes over time, not through forced conversations. She wants a man who allows the connection to unfold naturally rather than smothering it with insecurity. Over-explaining turns silence into pressure, and pressure is the quickest way to make her pull away even further. Stoicism teaches that you cannot control external events, only your responses. When she ignores you, the wise response is not to overanalyze or overcommunicate. It is to step back, observe, and allow the dynamic to rebalance itself. You maintain your calm. You protect your energy. You only speak when speaking is needed, not when anxiety demands it. This energy is what makes a woman feel safe, respected, and drawn to you, not forced or overwhelmed. When you stop over-explaining, something powerful happens. The dynamic resets. Your energy becomes lighter, stronger, and more attractive. She feels your emotional independence. She recognizes your self-worth, and her silence no longer becomes a weapon. It becomes space that allows her curiosity and interest to return naturally. Mistake number 3, trying to remind her of your worth instead of actually living it. One of the most damaging mistakes men make when a woman ignores them is attempting to remind her of their worth instead of embodying it. When the silence becomes uncomfortable, many men begin subtly or overtly trying to prove that they are valuable, interesting, desirable, or irreplaceable. They do this through emotional messages, compliments she didn't ask for, long apologies, social media posts designed to catch her attention, or conversations meant to make her remember how good things were. But the moment you try to convince someone of your value, you silently admit that you don't fully believe in it yourself. This mistake is rooted in anxiety and fear. When she ignores you, your mind begins to doubt your impact. You start thinking maybe she forgot your qualities. Maybe she found someone more exciting. Maybe you need to say or do something to remind her why she liked you in the first place. But these reactions, although normal, are rooted in insecurity, not strength. And insecurity, when exposed, dissolves whatever attraction she may still have. Women are not attracted to men who broadcast their worth. They are attracted to men whose worth is self-evident through their behavior, their calmness, their discipline, and the life they lead. Trying to remind her of your worth through explanation or attention-seeking actions communicates the opposite, that your value depends on her recognition. A man with real self-worth never feels the need to chase respect. He never feels the need to prove himself through words. His lifestyle is the proof. His consistency is the proof. His energy is the proof. His silence is the proof. The deeper psychological reason this mistake destroys attraction is simple. When you try to prove your worth, you enter a frame where she becomes the evaluator and you become the applicant. She becomes the judge, and you become the one trying to gain approval. That dynamic completely reverses polarities. A woman cannot respect a man who is trying to be chosen. She respects a man who chooses himself and invites her into his life, not a man begging for validation from hers. Trying to remind her of your worth often backfires because it exposes desperation. It shows that her attention is your source of confidence. It shows that her silence destabilizes your identity. Instead of appearing strong, you appear dependent. Instead of appearing desirable, you appear uncertain. And nothing weakens attraction faster than a man who loses himself the moment he feels ignored. Stoicism teaches that external validation must never dictate internal equilibrium. Your value does not increase when someone notices it, nor does it decrease when someone ignores it. Your worth is constant, and the moment you act from that truth, everything in the dynamic shifts. When a woman ignores you, the strongest response is not to prove yourself, but to live in a way that reflects confidence, direction, and emotional independence. You return to your mission. You invest in yourself. You stay active, consistent, and composed. You allow your life, not your words, to speak for you. When you embody your worth rather than explain it, something powerful happens. She begins to feel your absence. She begins to wonder why you didn't crumble. She begins to question why your world didn't pause. She begins to remember what made you attractive in the first place. And she begins to realize that losing your attention would cost her more than she thought. This is how a man regains control, not by proving his value, but by living it so strongly that she cannot ignore it. Mistake number 4. Waiting around for her, like your life is on pause. One of the most silently destructive mistakes men make when a woman ignores them is waiting. Not waiting in a healthy, patient way, but waiting in a way that freezes their entire life. The moment she pulls back, many men stop moving forward. They stop doing the things that gave them confidence. They stop focusing on their goals. They stop engaging in their routines. They stop living. Instead, they sit in a state of emotional limbo, refreshing messages, replaying conversations, and imagining scenarios where she finally reaches out again. In this process, they turn a temporary silence into a full identity collapse. The danger of this mistake is that it trains your mind to link your emotional stability to her attention. You begin to condition yourself into believing that your day improves if she replies and deteriorates if she doesn't. This mindset is poisonous because it makes you reactive rather than grounded. You stop being a man who leads his life and become a man who waits for cues from someone else's behavior. Nothing destroys masculine polarity faster than placing your life on hold for someone who is not actively choosing to be present. Women are incredibly perceptive. Even if she doesn't see it directly, she can feel when a man's world shrinks around her absence. She can sense when she becomes the center of his emotional universe. And the moment she realizes this, she loses respect. Not because she wants you to suffer, but because she instinctively knows she cannot rely on a man who loses himself the moment she steps away. A man whose life collapses when she disappears is a man who cannot lead when she returns. Waiting around also creates a dangerous illusion. The illusion that she holds all the power. The longer you wait, the more valuable her attention becomes in your mind. The more valuable her attention becomes, the more you fear losing it. And the more you fear losing it, the more likely you are to settle for less respect, less effort, and less reciprocity just to keep the connection alive. This is how men fall into cycles of emotional dependence without even noticing it. But here's the deeper truth. A woman does not fall for a man whose world stops for her. She falls for a man whose world continues, stronger. She falls for a man who values his time, his purpose, his mission. She falls for a man who directs his energy into growth rather than waiting for a message that might not come. Stoicism teaches that external circumstances should never dictate the depth of our inner movement. Silence from others is not a signal to stop living. It is an opportunity to deepen your discipline, sharpen your purpose, and refine your mentality. When you refuse to wait around, everything changes. You send a powerful signal, not to her, but to yourself. You communicate that your life is too meaningful to pause. Your goals are too important to neglect. Your identity is too valuable to place in someone else's hands. This energy is magnetic. It creates an emotional contrast she can feel even from a distance. Suddenly, you're not the man staring at his phone. You're the man she wonders about. She begins to ask herself why you didn't crumble, why your energy didn't disappear, why you didn't chase, why you didn't make her silence the center of your world. And that curiosity becomes the spark that reopens her attraction. A man who keeps moving becomes a man she can't forget. A man who keeps growing becomes a man she can't replace. A man who keeps living becomes a man she wants to return to, not a man she pities. When you stop waiting, you stop losing. And when your life continues forward without hesitation, the power dynamic shifts instantly. Mistake number 5. Confronting her emotionally and demanding answers. She's not ready to give. The final and often most catastrophic mistake men make when she ignores them is confronting her emotionally. This is when a man, overwhelmed by uncertainty, sends the message that exposes everything he was trying to hide. The message filled with frustration, accusation, or emotional pleading. It sounds like, "Why are you ignoring me?" Or, "What did I do wrong?" Or, "Just be honest with me." And while these questions feel justified in the moment, to her, they signal something far more damaging, an inability to handle emotional pressure. When a woman pulls away, she is often navigating her own internal space. She might be testing your stability. She might be unsure of her feelings. She might be overwhelmed, stressed, distracted, or emotionally saturated. Her silence is not always a rejection. It is sometimes a recalibration. But when a man confronts her emotionally, he interrupts that process with pressure. He forces her to respond before she is ready. He tries to extract clarity from someone who is still navigating confusion. And nothing suffocates feminine energy faster than forced emotional labor. What makes this mistake even more fatal is how it reveals the man's internal state. Emotional confrontation shows her that he cannot handle uncertainty. It shows her that silence destabilizes him. It shows her that he does not trust himself to remain grounded. And once she sees this vulnerability, not the healthy kind, but the kind rooted in insecurity, her attraction begins to fade. Women do not pull away because they want arguments. They pull away because they want space. And demanding answers is the quickest way to make that space permanent. Emotional confrontation also shifts the power dynamic entirely. Instead of appearing calm, patient, and self-respecting, the man appears reactive, anxious, and emotionally dependent. She senses that her silence has become a weapon, one she never intended to use, but one that now reveals how deeply he hinges on her responses. And once a woman realizes she can control a man's emotions this easily, the polarity is broken. Respect begins to erode. Stoicism teaches us that emotional maturity means resisting the impulse to act when emotions are at their peak. It means observing rather than reacting. It means allowing situations to unfold naturally rather than trying to force clarity. When she ignores you, the Stoic approach is not confrontation. It is composure. It is silence that communicates dignity. It is self-control that communicates power. It is patience that communicates self-worth. A man who does not react emotionally becomes unforgettable. He becomes the rare man she cannot predict, the rare man she cannot control, the rare man whose stability stands out in a world of emotional chaos. When he does speak, his words carry weight because they are not born from insecurity, they are born from intention. And here is the deeper truth. When a woman ignores you, she doesn't need answers from you. She needs clarity within herself. And emotional confrontation destroys that clarity. But when you remain composed, respectful, and self-grounded, she eventually returns with a different energy: curiosity, softness, and openness. She returns because your silence wasn't a punishment. It was proof of your self-respect. She returns because your patience made her feel safe. She returns because your lack of emotional pressure allowed her to reapproach you without fear. A man who confronts emotionally loses control. A man who remains composed gains it. Briefly, when a woman ignores you, it feels personal, it feels intentional, It feels like a rejection of everything you brought to the connection. But the truth is far deeper and far more empowering than most men realize. Her silence is not always her decision. Sometimes it is a reflection of her confusion, her emotional overload, her testing, or her uncertainty. What destroys attraction is rarely the silence itself. It is how a man responds to it. The 5 mistakes we explored, chasing her attention, over-explaining yourself, trying to prove your worth, putting your life on pause, and confronting her emotionally, are not just behaviors. They are signals. They reveal insecurity, emotional dependence, and lack of self-control. They tell her that her silence has more power over your identity than your own purpose does. And no woman feels attraction, respect, or curiosity for a man who loses himself the moment she steps back. But the opposite is equally true. When you refuse to chase, she starts to wonder. When you remain calm, she begins to notice. When your life continues moving, she starts to question her distance. When you embody your worth instead of explaining it, she feels your strength. When you refuse emotional confrontation, she feels safe enough to return. This is the paradox of attraction. The less you try to pull her back, the more she feels pulled toward you. Not because of manipulation, but because of masculine stability. Women are drawn to men who remain composed inside uncertainty. Men who do not negotiate their dignity. Men who do not allow silence to shrink their identity. Men who let go without falling apart. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from controlling the self, not controlling outcomes. This is the key to mastering the moments when she ignores you. Your goal is not to force her attention. Your goal is to maintain your internal power. You do not chase people who step back. You do not explain yourself when no one is asking. You do not pause your life for someone who has paused the conversation. You do not push emotionally when the moment calls for space. You do not break your frame because someone else broke their rhythm. When you hold your center, everything shifts. She begins to feel the emotional separation. Not because you punished her, but because you stopped over-investing. She becomes curious. She starts watching you again. She wonders why you didn't collapse. She wonders what you're doing. She wonders if she misread your attachment. She wonders why your energy didn't beg for her attention. That curiosity is the first step back toward attraction. The man who stays grounded becomes the man she cannot ignore. Remember, silence is not the battlefield. Your reaction to the silence is. When you stop making these 5 mistakes, you reclaim your power. You reclaim your emotional independence. You reclaim the image she was first drawn to, the calm, composed, purposeful man who moves forward with or without her. And ironically, that is the exact moment she begins to feel your absence and desire your presence again. This is not about playing games. This is not about punishing her. This is about protecting your identity, your peace, and your value. And once you master that, her silence will never intimidate you again. It will simply reveal who you truly are. Remember, knowledge means nothing without action. If you're ready to rise above emotion and lead with purpose, join the community today at the link below. Enroll once, grow forever.